everyone, JayArr here from Bell of Lost Souls, and today we are taking a look at Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. This is the new book out for Dungeons & Dragons. It's going to be out May 18th in select gaming stores, or May 29th worldwide. This book is really cool. It's sort of from the perspective of Mordenkainen, a powerful planar traveling wizard who has seen it all, done it all, and who kind of sees himself as a shepherd of the balance in the multiverse. He isn't good, isn't evil. He thinks that if either side sort of gains the balance of power, that the whole multiverse will be thrown into chaos. So you've got all of that kind of going into this book. Now here's the table of contents. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so you guys can see some of the stuff that's waiting for you. There are a ton of new monsters and a ton of new story and lore stuff, because one of the things that Wizards did when they created this book was they set out to create a Dungeons & Dragons book that is fun both for people who are wanting to use the book in their game and for people who are just wanting to get more into the world and the story of Dungeons & Dragons. This book has a ton of lore and story stuff that you can grab and run with and use for inspiration right out of the gate. So sort of one of the flagship chapters of the book is the Blood War. This is something that was huge in 2nd edition. It's this big fight between the demons of the abyss on one side and the devils of the 9 hells on the other. So it's like these two massively, incredibly evil forces warring with each other, and it's one of the reasons why evil is having a hard time winning out over good in the long run. But you get a ton of cool stuff in this section. You get write-ups on each of the archdevils, each of the demon lords. You get a look behind the scenes. Not everything that's in this book has stats somewhere in the game, but many of the things do. But what's really interesting is it talks about like the events that happen over the course of the Blood War, and it gives you some great ways to involve your players in. So whether you're playing a character and you're like, I think this is kind of interesting, I'd love to be like a cast-off mercenary who was hired in Sigil and sent to go fight in the Blood War for a little bit. Or, you know, if you just want to be sort of related to it, they have a ton of new things for people who are like cultists, demon or devil worshippers. All get some different flavors of things to do. There are rules for giving cult powers, and it's sort of like a template, although not really. It's just sort of additional stuff that you can add to a stat block. It doesn't change the challenge rating. It just sort of reflavors them. And you get rules for changing up cambions as well, and of course every player's favorite section, the new tiefling spells and or not spells, racial powers and attributes. You also get a whole chapter on all of the demons here as well, and again, demonic boons that they can grant to their followers. There's a warrior who's been given a boon of Orcus, and basically these are like, if you've played 40k, this kind of feels a lot like the Chaos Marauders. You're empowered by demons to go do something, and then you just go do it. They don't really have a huge direct impact. Now, the rest of the chapters up in the first half of this book are kind of centered around conflicts. You've got elves and drow. You've got new sub-races in each of them, new stories in each of them. You've got dwarves and dwergar, who are the evil, sort of dark, psionic elves. There are rules for them in the book. There's all kinds of new tables. The other section that's new in the book, the new race introduced, the big new race introduced, are the Githyanki and the Githzerai, which is interesting because it's one race. They're both the Gith, but they have 2 different flavors on them. Anyway, you will find a ton of cool stuff to sort of open up the world of Dungeons & Dragons. And one of the things that they really do a good job of in here is giving you an insight into the game, giving you a hook that you can use for your story right away. There are a number of tables in here. I'm going to take you through the gnome table, which give you different kind of like personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws, things you can use to develop your character, figure out who they are and how they fit into the world. So, like, you might have a gnome who studies their friends, takes notes about how they act, and jots down things that they say that are of interest to them. Your ideal might be your helpfulness whenever you see a broken contraption or a broken heart. You have to try to fix it. Your bond might be that you are searching for your lost love, or willing to take risks to learn about the world. And a flaw might be there is no difference between what you think and what you say. Anyway, that right there, quick and easy character to start playing with. Like, I can already picture them. But the real meat and potatoes of the book, making up a good half of it, are the new monsters that they add in Chapter 6, which is the Bestiary. You get all kinds of cool stuff. I'm going to walk you through these guys. They are monsters that we've seen before, like the Burbalang or the Astral Dreadnought. These are old favorites. There's a Cadaver Collector and a Choker. There's all kinds of old familiar faces who have been updated for 5th edition as well. Check out that gorgeous art. As well, there are some new monsters, or at least ones that I haven't seen before, like the Wastrelith, which is a kind of corrupting demon. You get the stats for demon lords as well. One of the things that this book really kind of has hammered out well are the high-level monsters. So you get demon lords, you get high-level demons, you get archdevils, all that stuff. But the other thing that this book really is excelling at so far, at least as far as I've been reading through it, is monsters that work well together. It feels like with Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, Wizards is adding a little more tactical depth to the game so that you can make combat a little more challenging, but also so that you can make combat a little more narrative, which is this interesting place to be, right? Because on the one hand, there are these complex mechanics that interact with each other in challenging ways. But on the other hand, they also do that to tell a story. So, for instance, we're looking here at the Duergar, the Dark Dwarves, and there are a number of ways that they fit together that sort of suggest a story. So, I want to show you here. We've got the Duergar Stone Guards. They have they're basically like warriors, right? They fight with a sword and shield. They have javelins. They can clump together in a phalanx, and they can make themselves larger, do things like that. You've got, you have the Duergar Soul Blade as well, also making powerful attacks. These guys are all kind of low challenge creatures, but if you back them up with a Duergar Warlord, for instance, you can use them to give the minions that are out there even more attacks, and they can be invisible and sort of make it so that the Duergar who are out there fight harder, while the players have to try and figure out, do they go for the invisible warlord who's making everyone better, or do they take out the minions piecemeal, getting hurt and injured all the way. There are also monsters that present an interesting tactical challenge as well that sort of suggest... Oh, I want to show off the GIF before we get to that. This guy's one of my favorites. He's from Spelljammer. GIFs are hippopotamus-headed humanoids who love gaudy military uniforms, guns, explosives, and are renowned pirates, mercenaries, and spacefaring soldiers. They are 100% Spelljammer guys, and they just are amazing. They, like, I mean, look at them. I don't know how this is in a player race, but you've got all their stats there. You could probably reverse engineer it. But the other thing I was saying is that there are creatures that have sort of a combat puzzle to them, which I really like. I'm going to show off the... come on. I'm going to show off the star spawn here. So these guys are kind of incredible. They're like the sort of great old one minions. They're aberrations, things from beyond the stars, real outsiders from the far realms or whatever. These are elder evil things. They're the real bad guys, if you will. But what I wanted to show off is the how well they can work together. So let's take a look at this monster, the Starspawn Hulk. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you about its psychic mirror ability. So it has a ton of hit points to start with. It's got 136 hit points. So even a level 10 party will have a hard time taking them down in one turn. And it's okay. It does some decent damage, but really what its threat is its psychic mirror ability. If the Hulk takes psychic damage, each creature within 10 feet of the Hulk takes that damage instead. The Hulk takes none of the damage. In addition, the Hulk's thoughts and location can't be discerned by magic. That part, that's flavor but delicious. But then you have the Starspawn Seer, who just one of their attacks, one of their standard actions that they can do at will, is throwing a psychic orb at a Starspawn Mangler. So when you have their psychic mirror, basically you have a large creature that every time it takes psychic damage, so the Starspawn Seer can turn one of these Hulks into a sort of walking nuke or walking like AoE damage site. You can basically multiply out your damage across multiple creatures, and there are a ton of other monsters like that. You get the big monsters are in here. You have Drow Matron Mothers. You have the Elder Elementals, all of which are really cool and sort of these primeval destructive forces. What's interesting to me is that monsters that were in the past just sort of like normal monsters, like the Phoenix, are these elemental titans that are, challenge. This one's challenge 16. The Zaratan, which I love, is like the island turtle or dragon turtle in the past, is a challenge 22 earth elemental. There's a ton of cool stuff that fits real well together, and a ton of stuff that just sort of suggests a story. And I want to show you guys the thing that like really exemplifies that. For me, at least, when I was flipping through this book, this kind of made me stop and it sent my imagination kind of running wild. So this will be the last thing we show off, and then we'll get to the end. Anyway, this is the Deathlock, and it's just 3 entries, but the idea is a Deathlock is a warlock who has either somehow failed their evil patron, or who has like served whatever their patron being is, and then died and been raised as now just a pure servant of that patron. So this works for me on a ton of different levels. It works if you've got a warlock in the party. This guy is an example of their fate. One of the things that's interesting about the Deathlocks is that their goals, their lives' ambitions sort of fall away, replaced with the goals of its patron being. So if you were, an ambitious, power-hungry arcanist and you bargained with like an infernal for power, if you run across an infernal-themed Deathlock who is now just sort of a mindless, or who's given up their ambitions to wholly serve whatever their archdevil or something, say, that's kind of terrifying, and that's a good like future example. And there are also Deathlock masterminds who've been given even more power by their patron. They have a little more free will. They have a little more influence in the mortal realms. They are great pawns, but at challenge 8, they're the excellent villain for like the first act or even the first half of a campaign. Like, if you wanted to run a shorter campaign, which a lot of them do, many games don't make it past 7th level. These guys could be like the excellent, like, final encounter kind of things. They're powerful. They are kind of tragic in a way, but they also represent this incomprehensible, otherworldly alien force, whether it's or otherworldly force, really. And then you finally have Deathlock Whites, who are these like specters that have all but lost their power and have this like tormented existence. But right away you can kind of put together a story of like the party encounters a Deathlock or they're fighting a Warlock who becomes a Deathlock, who later on shows up as a Deathlock mastermind. Like, there are a number of ways that you could spin this, a number of adventures you could plan, and that's just from 2 pages of the book. They group monsters together in ways that show you how you can tell your story. Along with the combat information, along with the stats, they've really hammered home the idea of, we want you to think about how you guys are going to use these. So that's Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. I really like it. As far as what it's like, if you've seen Volo's Guide to Monsters, it's a little bit like that, although it's a little more cosmic in scope. There are new player races, not as many as in Volo's Guide, but the monsters are incredible in this book. I think if you want to run like a higher power game, this is definitely the way to go. Even if you don't, there's so much that you can get out of this book. I cannot recommend it enough. So yeah, this is Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. I'm JayArr, and thanks for watching.
Click to subscribe. Check out more videos. And thanks for watching.